This is WLWT News 5, leading the way with breaking news.
That story we've been following since yesterday afternoon, that Richmond fire. A press conference happening right now.
Yeah, and we're going to go ahead and take you to that press conference where we're hearing from the mayor.
For some response.
Mr. Mayor, what were you requiring from this property? Did it need sprinklers? Did you have to remove what did you want from him?
There were a list of requirements that included cleanup and other safety measures to prevent this from happening. We will cover all of that once we make sure everyone's safe. I don't want to turn my attention just yet to the litigation behind this. I want to really keep my attention right now on the safety of our first responders and our citizens.
Well, we asked this question, Mr. Mayor, because are there others, not only in this city, but other cities where you go to court, you ask for something to happen, and here we are days later, and now you have a disaster on your hand, which then impacts your first responders and your citizens. Are there other properties here in Richmond and maybe across the state that need to be taken action upon?
I can't speak to situations in other cities. I don't want to speak on their behalf, but I appreciate that the court upheld our ruling. And so we just wish that the property owner and the business owner would have taken this more serious from day one. This person has been negligent and irresponsible, and it's led to putting a lot of people in danger today.
Have you been in contact with that business owner since yesterday?
Yes, sir. One of our fire investigators made contact with the business owner last evening, but it's an ongoing investigation, so I'm not going to get into any more of that right now. We don't speak on ongoing investigations, but that contact was made last night.
Can you tell us if that person lives here in Richmond?
I do not believe they were a Richmond resident, but nearby. I'm going to bring up State Fire Marshal Steve Jones to speak from the State Fire Marshal's office.
Hello, I'm Steve Jones, the State Fire Marshal for the state of Indiana. I've been here about 18 hours working with Chief Brown and the fire department. This has been a challenging fire just because it's plastics, and my understanding, whenever they pulled out of the firehouse, they immediately could see they had a substantial fire already. And I just want to, I guess, they did a great job. Is this fire, because of the nature of the contents of the building, was a fast-growing fire. And so they got in, surrounded it, and cut it off from the residential neighborhood, which just speaks volumes of the work that they did yesterday, is getting their troops in, being able to deliver the water where it needed to cut this fire off, because it was going to be a total loss, but it could have grown further than just these buildings here. And so just kudos to the fire department and their efforts and their tactical decisions to cut this fire off. Again, this fire, it takes a lot from the community, the mayor, the street department, emergency management, and a lot of different agencies. And they've done a wonderful job communicating, pulling their team together to deal with this. And currently it's in the short term, but it will go into the longer term, and just being able to pull that together. The other thing I want to cover too is media questions. After this press release, the Indiana Homeland Security PIO will be a contact for the media, and you can call 463-202-4063, and that will be your contact for a while, because the local agencies were busy trying to manage an emergency situation, and we're getting tons of phone calls, and so from the media, and so we need to focus on the community, focus on the first responders, making for sure that everybody's safe. And we don't have time right now to take 50 phone calls. And so that will be your contact for a while until things settle down here locally. So,
Marshal Jones, you have to see 92 counties. Your investigators are in all 92 counties in Indiana. This city attempted, or was working to, they were proactive. Here's a property that probably should not be burning today. Are we fully covered around our state so if something like this does not happen in a Kokomo, a Greenfield, a Franklin, a Lake County?
Fire prevention, whether it's in a home or businesses, is real important, is to prevent. And so just speaking broadly in those terms is whether it's in a home, fire safety, or whether it's in the industrial or commercial buildings, the fires can be prevented. And so that's kind of our efforts across the state of Indiana, is trying to educate factories, businesses, homes, moms, dads, grandmas, and grandpas about fire safety, because fires grow quickly, whether it's at a house or a large commercial building. In a commercial building, it impacts a broad community, and so that's the effort.
But Marshal, this is not a home, this is a property. Do you have the tools so that when cities or you go into a property that is not doing their part, can you either shut it down or be more effective? Is there enough teeth in the laws currently?
There is. Speaking to this and take a while, that is the local fire departments and local government. They handle most of the things that happen across the state of Indiana. Then they reach out to us sometimes if they need assistance.
We were getting reports that Richmond Fire would tell you that they did all that they could, but state law was not available.
And I'm not familiar with.
I know, but
yes.
we have a chance to speak to the chief here. The chief
Yeah.
says to you, Marshall, we did everything we could, but state law would not allow us to close this down. Will you go to the governor and say, Governor, we need to do something better when it comes to these kinds of properties?
Yeah. Everything in government sometimes is a challenge in trying to make processes and networking with other agencies is something we're constantly working on.
We're getting reports that this building may have been in part or partially owned by the city. Can anyone address that? Tell us if that's correct.
Thank you, sir. I'll begin by echoing State Fire Marshal's words that I want to thank our fire department so much. Their work is not done. Their safety is still in jeopardy as they continue to battle this blaze. So they've done a great job up to this point in containing it on the site and not letting it spill over into a nearby residential area. We've had questions asking if we've had any injuries. We have had one minor injury of a firefighter who was treated yesterday. So far, thankfully, that is the only injury we have to report from this fire. Your question was about city ownership of part of this property. Our ownership was part of our due diligence to hold this business owner accountable. And so that was just one further step in us holding this person accountable for what is happening behind me right now.
So does the city partially own it, or do the city own it and they're the operators?
The city owns a piece of the property that's on fire, but not the entirety of it. We took a portion of it from the business owner in a tax sale to hold that person accountable for this cleanup. They are still accountable for everything on this site, for every bit of the mess on this site. They're responsible for the fire that has happened and all of the damage that's ensued afterward.
Now, the neighborhood right behind you, we were over there. The smoke is that way. It smells like tear gas. The evacuation is a half mile.
Mm-hmm.
What is the concern for people who want to go home and people beyond that half mile, because the smoke is still burning?
Your question is perfectly timed. The next person that I want to bring forward is a representative from the EPA. Excuse me, I'll let that get past. I want to bring forward a representative from the EPA, Jason Sewell, who will talk about any possible contaminants and the smoke that is billowing from the site.
Good morning. I'm Jason Sewell with U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Yesterday, the Indiana Department of Environmental Management called and asked for our assistance with monitoring air quality in the area. We arrived with contractors, and we've been collecting measurements and roving locations all over town, all overnight, and we have crews continuing to do so today. The contaminants we've been monitoring for include particulate matter in different sizes, as well as some specific toxic compounds. Fortunately, the toxic compounds that we're looking for, we're not seeing. But everyone needs to keep in mind that smoke is harmful, and we are seeing smoke in our particulate meters.
Yeah, question for you. I have two questions for you. One, are people in Richmond safe? And two, for people in Northwest Ohio, winds are coming from the southwest. For people in Ohio, do they need to be concerned about this?
So we understand there's smoke is going to be going into Ohio. We're close enough to the border. People in Ohio are going to be seeing it. We did collect some measurements in Ohio last night, and again, what we were finding was particulate matter, which is smoke. As far as the safety concerns, we collect our information and we provide it to the health agencies. And so Christine is going to speak next on what these instruments and readings mean for people.
But Mr.
And
Sewell,
just to be clear, when you said the toxic compounds you were looking for were not found, does that mean that you widened the scope, or at this point are you saying that there were no toxins found?
So there will definitely be toxins in smoke.
Yeah.
We're measuring at the ground level. Of course, heat rises, and the smoke plume is not at ground level for the most part, and dissipates as it goes downwind. But again, where we were monitoring, we were not monitoring in the evacuation zone for the safety of my workers, but we were monitoring in the shelter-in-place areas and further areas, again, all the way up to New Paris, Ohio.
What kind of
Sewell,
toxins
can you
might
tell
have
us
you been looking for?
what chemicals are you looking for? We talk about toxins. Can
Sure.
you tell us what they are in basic language, and what can those things
It doesn't
cause?
get basic, but,
well, but just do your best.
we're using an instrument that looks for volatile organic compounds. That's a class of compounds that can include things like styrene, and styrene can be put off in the burning of plastic. It can include benzene, which can be included in burning of plastic. We were also using a benzene-specific instrument and didn't see benzene.
Are these cancer-causing toxins?
Many of them are.
And give me in the spectrum, at the best and the worst, what can these based on the chemicals you're talking about, what is their danger zone?
So, questions on what the readings mean for personal health is a health department purview, and we can ask those questions for Christine.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Can you explain, as far as obviously it's bad to breathe this in, should people be wearing masks? Any precautions that they should take either now, tomorrow, or next week?
I'll leave that question to Christine.
One question for you. I know you've measured now. Obviously, this smoke is still billowing out at a huge rate. Is this something you're going to continue to do measurements on?
That's an excellent question. And I'd like to add, as the fire cools down, you're going to have more ground level smoke. And that'll be as important for us to be monitoring as the fire is extinguished as it is during kind of the peak of the fire. So we will stick around.
So are you testing every day, every 8 hours, or what does that look like?
24 hours a day. Right now we have people, like I said, roving around with handheld instruments, collecting snapshot readings at various locations that they will come back and repeat readings at the same locations. Depending on how long the fire goes out, we could actually set up some stationary meters that would measure in place real time until we pick them up.
Mr. Sewell, the things that are burning, are these things that will dissipate in the air, or are these the things that will leave a residue on vehicles, countertops, windows, doors, knobs?
I wouldn't speculate. We'll have to wait and see as the fire goes what we find.
So are those things you will test then for as you move forward, or?
I'm not testing like soot on cars, if that's what you're asking.
No, what I'm asking is based on the compounds you're looking at. Are these the types of compounds that either burn in the air and then dissipate because of the heat or the fire, or are these the types of compounds that will stick to the surfaces of vehicles, doors, and those kinds of things?
I'm not going to speculate.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So we don't have a list of all the things that were burning in that building yet? They should have had hazmat records. If it's a recycling plant, they need to have some sort of records of everything that they held in that building.
So this is a recycling plant.
But even still, there's
my
batteries in
understanding.
there.
Maybe they have batteries in there. There's a system for recording what products you would have on hand, and that system goes to the state. It's called a Tier 2 system.
Right.
And that was discussed last night, and this particular facility, I believe, does not have records on the Tier 2 system. Yeah.
Okay. So.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Sewell.
Thank you, Jason. And one more thing, if you could comment on, if people were to find debris in their yard, you spoke earlier about not mowing over that and being careful how you dispose of that.
Yeah, thank you for
could
that.
speak to that, yes.
So based on the age of the building, it's possible there could be asbestos-containing materials and some debris that would have left the site. So we understand people are finding debris. Some of the pictures look like they could be melted plastic. Some of the pictures look like they could be roofing material and so forth. So we're going to be collecting a number of samples today and sending it off for analysis. And in the meantime, we would ask that people certainly do not mow the debris. So if you are finding debris in your yard, leave it be until we know more information. Certainly don't mow it up. And there you go.
Ms. Stinson, could you talk about what precautions neighbors in this area should be taking right now?
Sure. The health department's main concern at this point is the particulate matter, as Jason had talked about. These are very fine particles, and if they're breathed in, can cause all kinds of respiratory problems. Burning of the eyes, tightening of the chest. It could aggravate asthma, it could cause bronchitis, and all kinds of things. So we are stressing to the public to honor the evacuation zone. It's for your safety that the evacuation zone is there. And if you can see the smoke, you're in the smoke, get out of the smoke. If there's a reason that you need to go back to your home to get medication, you need to work with our officials on that site so we can safely escort you in and out of this evacuation zone. But any smoke whether it has, benzene or any of the other compounds that Jason spoke about, is dangerous because of the particulate matter that's in that. And breathing that in and of itself, just the particulate matter, is dangerous for all people, but in particular, people with chronic illnesses, COPD, and the elderly. So we are concerned about that.
So, ma'am, at this point, is that neighborhood closed, ma'am, then? Is that neighborhood, if I live in this neighborhood right with the fire and the smoke, is that shut down?
We still are maintaining a half-mile radius surrounding the fire and having the evacuation of that.
Should folks be worrying on that 95? I know we dealt with this with COVID, right? But what is the best way to manage? People still have to go to work, have to do, right? Life goes on in Richmond. What is the best way to handle this?
Absolutely. Masks do filter out particulate matter. When we get into really fine particulate matter, N95s are the type of masks that would be the most protective. But again, I want to reiterate, we want people to stay out of the evacuation zone. Wearing an N95 mask will provide a certain amount of protection, but the best protection you're going to get is to stay out of the smoke.
I understand the evacuation area is a half mile, but if I'm a mile and a half, am I any safer? Am I much safer? Should I do anything different?
If you're seeing, smelling, eyes burning, experiencing any kind of difficulty in breathing, you need to evacuate that area, get out of that area. Again, people that are more sensitive to these issues, people with chronic asthma, chronic COPD, and the elderly are more sensitive to the effects of breathing in the particulate matter.
And if people are inside, should they turn their air conditioners off?
Outside of the evacuation zone?
Inside or outside?
Well, they shouldn't be inside the evacuation zone. So if you're inside that evacuation zone, we are asking that you evacuate, which means to leave. We do have some shelters set up. We are going to be opening a community helpline where if there's any questions that the public has relating to this, they'll be able to call, and the health department will be fielding those questions and directing people to those resources.
I know you are with the health department in Wayne County, but obviously this smoke is traveling well into Ohio. What would your message be to those residents just on the other side of the border that are concerned about this smoke?
Again, if you see and smell smoke, you're in smoke. Smoke contains particulate matter, and that is something that we want to avoid. People being in the zone where there is particulate matter, avoid that area. So if you see and can smell the smoke, you need to remove yourself from that area.
Ma'am, this is an evolving situation.
It absolutely.
Maybe this is for you, the mayor. At what point do you say you can come back home? Is this now days? You have to wait for all that to go away? What is your fair timeline? As you know, people can't stay out of their homes. They do have other things to do, right? Life does go on. So based on the reality of the day, at what point do you start to think about when can people return home?
Well, we want life to go on.
I know you do.
So that's why we're having an evacuation zone so people don't get into dangers.
Absolutely.
If people are experiencing any kind of respiratory distress, they need to seek medical attention for that. When will the evacuation zone be increased, decreased, lifted? That's not my call. When it's safe for people to return, that's when we will announce that it's safe to return.
Whose call is it?
That would be more of the fire department, EPA, and a joint collaboration with all of the agencies involved. I do want to say that we have had wonderful community support for our firefighters. We have a wonderful fire department. The mayor's been involved, EPA's been involved, the Indiana Department of Environmental Management is involved. Businesses have donated stuff for the firefighters and first responders. So, if anything good comes out of this, it's me being able to see how our community does come together in the event of an emergency.
I think a lot of us get a false sense of security, especially we are standing in the evacuation zone, but the wind is blowing that way. There may be people on this side of the street who stayed at home. what is your advice to them? Because they're saying, oh, it's blowing that way. I'm 2 blocks away, but it's blowing the other way.
Yeah, there is a half-a-mile evacuation zone, and we would like everyone in that half-mile evacuation zone to evacuate. I know just standing here, and you can see how close we are to the fire, my throat is starting to get a little sore. As soon as I can get out of here, I'm going to be out of the evacuation zone, and I hope that everyone understands that just because you're not standing in that plume of smoke, I can smell this fire, so that means that there's particulate matter in this area too, and it's dangerous. You know, I don't have COPD, I don't have chronic asthma, but I am feeling the effects of being in this zone and would like to have a mask on.
If somebody is watching us right now, that's exactly what I was trying to get at. If somebody's in this zone and they're watching us right now, mayor or anyone, what do they need to do? Is there someone they should call to come get them out if maybe they're not mobile? What do people need to do if they have not evacuated right now?
Well, you would always call the fire or the police department. They're not emergency line, and they'll be able to assist you. As soon as we get that community line up for people to call, we'll be directing everyone to call that, and we will be having a list of all of the resources and things for the public to know. But we're in the midst, I would say that line will be up probably in the next hour and a half, and it'll be a central location where the community can call and get information and access to resources.
Residents are asking about the water table. They're worried about the smoke particulates hitting to the ground, hitting to the local water streams. Is there any concern about the water table right now?
Well, Richmond is on a municipality, so they're drinking municipal water sources. They're not on a well water.
We're looking at across Ohio. We are getting reports right now that there are people smelling it across Ohio. So they obviously have concern because they're not on the same municipality as Richmond. This is why we're asking. Is there any concern for any water that the smoke touches at this point?
I think that we're concerned, and as we know more, we'll release more information. I haven't heard from the EPA or IDEM that there has been any levels of contamination in the water, but this is fluid, and this is, a live event. So as we know more, we will let the public know exactly where the dangers are and what we're seeing.
Okay. And for the fire chief, I just wanted to follow up on when you're attacking a fire like this, obviously one of this size. I can't imagine it's a typical fire dealing with in the buildings around here. How are you going about tackling this, containing it, and were there additional risk factors that you think more difficult for you?
Well, some of the risk factors was us getting access, of course. Like I said earlier, there's only one access into that area. We contained it to that area yesterday afternoon, and we continued that through the night. Today, when we have daylight, of course, we can start digging and start moving things to get us in there to where we can start extinguishing this fire a little bit.
And one quick follow-up, just as I noticed here, I noticed some folks from the ATF heading up to the scene. Is there a reason that, whether it's you or the mayor have reached out to the ATF to respond to the scene?
We have been in contact, well, we have the state fire marshal here, of course. We have their investigators. We have our own investigators. The ATF has contacted the state fire marshal's office and asked if we would like their help, and we graciously accepted. So there's no suspicion right now. It's still under investigation. We don't know one way or another, but we want to cover every avenue that we can.
What expertise do we take? Often we think about guns and firearms and what's their
They bring more resources to us. Steve, if you want to, Steve's more familiar with the ATF, and he's the one that actually okayed them to come in, so I'm going to let him talk about that.
Marshal, what's the expertise of the ATF in this investigation?
Well,
or response?
As you can see, it's an extraordinarily large fire. It takes a lot of work to process a fire to determine origin and cause. ATF, they do and assist in fire investigations across the nation. We work with them a lot. We network with the ATF a lot. They're good partners for us. And they have a large team that they can bring in. If they bring them in of specialized fire investigators, chemists, and other things. And so they're just a great resource for us to assist us in a large-scale fire investigation.
And just for you or the chief, one, have you ever seen anything like this in your career? And two, do you have any idea when you're going to be able to have this thing out?
Yes, I have had large fires like this in my career. And so that's why everything takes time. I know a lot of people want answers right now. There's a lot going on behind the scenes that takes just to manage, make sure the public safety people are safe. And so we like to keep our focus on them right now, and the fire investigation. And it's actually going to be a couple days before fire investigators, because it's not safe to go into the smoke, right? So I don't want to put any of our personnel, ATF personnel, local personnel in that. And so a lot of the things that you guys want answers, we just can't do that right now because we've got to wait till this thing cools down.
Marshall, we saw the
chance
ATF
that
respond to
the
the
business owner
fire
could
in
face
Plainfield.
charges?
Did you call them in as well because you had a good relationship with them? The ATF responded to the large Walmart fire in Plainfield. Based on that, did you find that they're also helpful in this situation?
Well, yeah, they're based out of Indianapolis. We have a local ATF agent in Indianapolis. We work with them a lot, so it's not uncommon. Right now, I don't know. I don't have the information whether they're going to engage in this or not. We'll see. Based upon we got to see what the facts are, how big this case looks like it's going to take, what it's going to take. But they're always good partners with us. So,
Mayor, can you tell us, you've had conversations with the business owner, obviously. Is there any chance that they could be facing criminal charges for a role that was played here?
I'm not going to jump to that. It's an active investigation. I will just tell you that the business owner is responsible for this mess, responsible for the disaster, and responsible for putting everyone in danger, from our first responders to our citizens.
And
So
we're
Mayor,
told
is
that's
that
a
in writing?
recycling/storage facility. Does it have a formal name?
The former name of the business was My Way Trading.
That's the former, and then what would it be current?
Well, that's what the business was operating under when he was doing business on site.
And say it one more time.
My Way Trading.
My Way Trading.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, you said you've communicated with the owner of the property. Have you followed up with a formal letter? Does he understand? How does he know?
Well, I want to be clear. I have not personally communicated with the business owner. He was contacted last night by an investigator. I just wanted to be transparent with you about that contact, but I don't want to go into any details about that because it's an ongoing investigation.
But would it be fair to say, Mr. Mayor, that at some point your office, since this is happening in the city, that there will be some sort of formal communication with this property owner?
Yes.
With expectations of what you expect in the days and months to come?
It is a fair assessment to make that there will be formal communications forthcoming once we get this under control.
But they haven't started.
No, we've only been in management mode of the situation.
But you will at some point?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, one more question.
If there was another incident that I would call 911.
And so your question's about the water in the area? Okay. Yes, and Christine Stinson spoke to that a moment ago, but we'll get with you after this with all the correct contact information. All of the people... Do we have any water reports at this time from the specific... Are you talking about in the evacuation area or outside?
If I was calling 911, what would they do? That's my question. I would have called 911.
So it sounds as though you want to speak to that.
Yes,
Chief?
we talked to the sanitation department yesterday, the water department, and they are routing the water from this area to a specific location in the plant to where they can treat it and take care of the water that is the runoff from this.
So kids taking baths and drinking this water today, yesterday.
Should be safe. Should be safe.
And you know that because the plant has been put in such.
Yes.
You guys said there'll be a phone number given out here soon for people to call, and then that'll be up in the hour.
Yes, we'll have that up.
If we could take just one question from one local reporter, that'd be awesome. At one point you said there were 12 million pounds of plastic just in one building. Do you have a feel for the total amount of plastics that's burning?
No, the entire complex is either burning or has burned. And we're looking at close to 14 acres worth of plastic that's piled everywhere. There's different piles on the facility. There's semi-trailers that are full of plastic. There are buildings that are full of plastics. So that's what we're dealing with.
How much of that 14 acres would you say is burning?
Probably, we've estimated 13 and a half.
Do you know how many citizens have been displaced?
I do not have that actual number, no. We heard estimates of 1,000 to 2,000 that have been displaced and going to different areas. The shelters have told us different numbers, so we're trying to get an accurate number of those.
Will there be any more press conferences after this one?
If there are any changes, yes, we'll put that out on the social media and let you know what time and when that'll be.
And the number that the state fire marshal provided earlier would be the best one to call
Yes.
for further updates. Okay.
And are you, last question, are you guys advising schools and everything to stay closed until further notice, or are they making their own calls right now?
We as a city government don't advise the schools. They take their assessments from Wayne Emergency Management and the Health Department. They've made their own decisions to close Richmond Community Schools today. They found that to be in their best interest. But everybody behind me is actively still working on a very dangerous fire that's still happening, and they have teams to lead. I need to let them get back to work. I just want to thank all of you for the time today and allowing us an opportunity to share all this information. You have the PIO contact, and all of the numbers are on social media if individuals need a bus to a shelter or if they need shelter, one or the other or both. We can assist with that. And we just want you to have those numbers and make them available to you if anyone needs assistance or if you as the media have any questions. And we'll be happy to do this again if there is more important information to share. Thank you all very much for your time today.
Thank you.
That is Mayor Dave Snow of Richmond, Indiana, and a whole multitude of officials standing behind him giving an update on that fire that continues to burn. The work is not done yet. Trying to get this fire under control. It was a pretty long press conference, about 30 minutes. We just kind of want to recap some of the main things. There was one injury reported to a firefighter treated yesterday. Minor injury, should be okay there. But if you've seen the video, you've seen the smoke, there's a lot of plastic burning. I think they said about 14 acres of this stuff burning. And the fire chief even said, like, they did a great job containing it. Didn't get into residential areas. They were able to surround it, get water on it where they needed to. But the problem is they can't get inside to get water on certain parts of it. And they hope today, now that it's daylight, they have a full day of work, that they can start to move things around, get closer to the fire, start getting water on things as well. And the water runoff is being directed to a specific part of the treatment plant to be treated as well.
Also, with those reps that were talking from the EPA, talking about monitoring that air quality, he did say that they're going to be doing that 24 hours.
I'm gonna jump in. I don't think your mic's on right there, but you mentioned the EPA and the air quality. They're measuring outside the evacuation zone right now, and they haven't gone into the evacuation zone to measure because of safety to those workers, but they are measuring quality all the way up to New Paris, Ohio, a good distance there on the other side of the state line. And they're also looking for the particulate matter, not seeing major compounds right now, but of course the smoke is dangerous. So we're going to wrap this all up here at the desk. Lacey and I will be back here at noon recapping this and any other breaking news happening around our area. So we'll see you at noon.